Welcome to the RotoWire Fantasy Football Live Tuesday show, September 12th. Week 1 is in the books. Remember, we do this show 5 days a week. During the regular season, you'll be off Wednesdays and Thursdays. Don't miss the Sunday start, sit, live stream. I'll give you the why so you can make your best decision. Instead of just saying, play player A, play player B. You'll make the decision. I'll give you everything I've got. Even goes that way with betting. I put props up on Twitter at Jim Coventry NFL. Look, I give you the rationale. If you like the rationale, bet it. You don't like the rationale, don't. It's trying to beat Vegas isn't so easy, but we give the rationale when we agree on it. It's a winning product because you know your football and we work together to make things work. Later in the show, we'll have Brandon Kravitz of RotoWire on. He'll be going over your waiver wire ads. I'm going to go through some of the news. We got risers, we got fallers, but let's talk about the Jets and the Bills. Oh, Aaron Rodgers, what the heck happened? Dr. David Chow at halftime had his stream. If you're not following Dr. David Chow, if you're into injuries, you should follow him. He was a doctor with the Chargers for a long time, and he knows those injuries as soon as he sees them. He called it out at halftime. He said that Rodgers has an Achilles injury. Now, that's been the team fears it as a report. They're waiting for the imaging, but Dr. Chow said right away, it's an Achilles. So that's it. And then Zach Wilson comes in. I would have to imagine, of course, the coach says he's going to start Zach Wilson the rest of the season. You have to say that because right now he's on your roster. But my guess is the phones have been working since late last night, maybe early this morning. They're seeing what they could do. If it's a trade, Andy Dalton, would be, he'll stand there and look down the pressure and he'll get the ball to Garrett Wilson. He got to Chris Olave last year. So, that could work. They'll have a running game. So all that could be an option. I'm sure they put in a call to Tom Brady and, we'll see what happens. Who knows there, right? There are options out there. Phillip Rivers, a couple years removed. Don't know that you want that. Matt Ryan can't really throw so much anymore. He can't take pressure, but there are options. It would be really morning, Charlene, back in the house. Great to see you. And I do think the Jets have to bring in a veteran here. Like I said, they'll say Wilson until it's not Wilson, but that'll be it. Now the Jets win the game. Beautiful. Great for the Jets. Very happy for them. It's a big emotional night. These are weird games. And if you were doing live in-game betting when Aaron Rodgers went down, and I didn't look at the line, but you got to be careful on these things because the emotional impact on games, these are things that we cannot quantify. And that's why so many times at X's and O's, we could talk about it all day long, and we get a probability edge from that for sure. But there are times where a team is mentally there, and the Bills. So you would think, oh, Aaron Rodgers is out. The Jets are going to deflate, and the Bills are going to steamroll them now. But what happens is the Bills, in their back of their mind, now they don't talk about this, but in the back of your mind, Sauger, welcome back. Good morning. So in the back of your mind, though, you have a letdown, and the Bills probably think, oh, great, we won this game. They don't say it. It's back here somewhere, but a switch goes off and you can't, it's one of these things you don't consciously decide, but it happens. That's why we see underdogs when, look, Arizona Cardinals, I don't know what their record's going to be, but very few teams are going to be able to get up emotionally for those games. But when Rodgers went down, who knows? Now, that said, let's just stick with the Jets for a minute. So I have a lot of shares of Garrett Wilson. I was glad he got out with 5 for 34 and a touchdown. That was an insane catch he made, but if Zach Wilson is the quarterback for a while, you have to significantly lower Wilson's expectations. If they bring a veteran in, he could be fine. Certainly, I don't know that the ceiling he would have had with Aaron Rodgers will be there, but that was a big blow for Garrett Wilson's fantasy value for sure. Now, the backfield. So understand with the Jets, Breece Hall had a massive run. He only had 10 carries and 2 targets, and his snap share, which is not on my screen right now, it was, I want to say it was 30-ish%. I want to say 30-ish%. And I had the number on my screen. I don't have it here right now. Dalvin Cook played about half the snaps. He had 13, 3 more carries, not as effective, had 6 targets to 2 for Breece Hall. So what the beat writers had said all along was that Hall would get eased in by midseason. They were hoping he would get a full workload. Even though he played great and he looked amazing, the coaches stuck with their plan, it seems like. And so Cook was in there a lot. And it'll be, my guess is based on what we saw and what the beat writer said, it'll be a sliding scale all year. It'll get closer and closer and closer a little bit each week. And then finally by midseason, Hall will take over. Now we see the upside. Hall busts off was an 80-yard run, and it's like, there's that. So he has that, and he ends up with 147 yards because of that on 11 touches. But he's Breece Hall, right? Superman. And we got this comment here. Good for Wilson's floor. Hopefully, because now what the Jets probably want to do is Robert Saleh is going to get that defense just as dialed up as he does, and they want to run the ball, shorten the game, keep that defense off the field, and that's going to be great. Charlene, oh my gosh, the Sunday live stream. Oh my gosh, Sundays are nuts. Got the XM show from, is it 9 to 10 Eastern? I'm in Central Time, so I always get to kind of screwed up a little bit. And then we go from that. And then I had a radio show for Toronto, Canada. And then we had the Start Sit show. That is a firestorm for like an hour and a half. But it's fun, Charlene. It's totally fun. I love doing it. It's a highlight to be able to interact with my friends out there. Michael Carter, he did get some snaps, about 20%-ish, and I don't have it on my screen. But he had a carry and 2 targets. He was a little bit involved. Now, the Bills side of the ball, oh, man. Josh Allen, look, fantasy, he's going to be great. And remember, all of the top 8 quarterbacks who were drafted, none of them went off in week 1. 0. We had, a little rushing yards, 59, I think, out of Justin Fields. That helped him a little bit. Trevor Lawrence had a couple touchdowns. But outside of that, the quarterbacks in the top 8 did not go off at all. Mahomes had a decent game. His receivers let him down. Josh Allen, here he goes, 3 interceptions. Puts the ball on the carpet twice, loses one of them. 1 touchdown, 236 yards. Now, Jets are a good defense, for sure. Josh Allen, he's going to be great for fantasy. Don't sweat that for a minute. But we've been talking about Josh Allen since he had that career year. Now it's probably 2 to 3 years back. Those numbers were out of nowhere. He's still an excellent quarterback. We're not knocking Josh Allen. He's still going to get points on the board. But those interceptions, those were him early in his career. Those were him before the elbow injury last year. So he's still going to be super productive, but you're going to have games like this because fundamentally, he just is not – he wants to make the plays with his arm. He's not the same processing level of some of the elite ones that are just check, and move. He just wants – to make his play on his terms. And that's fine. He gets it done for fantasy. But they're going to need him to tighten up the ship a little bit if the Bills want to be a serious contender for the Super Bowl. The running back, the backfield. So we talked about it. We said James Cook, Uncle Ted. Welcome, Uncle Ted. Glad you're back. James Cook leads in snaps. Over half of the snaps. He gets 6 targets and 12 carries. Jets were a tough draw. So the fact that Cook just missed 4 yards per carry, you know what? We can live with that. Total of 63 yards. He puts up 10 PPR points. Not what we hope for, but the Jets are a bad matchup, right? And so Albert, welcome. Good morning. And then Damian Harris saw less work than Latavius Murray. Murray outsnapped him by about 10%. I want to say I don't have the number on my screen. It's like 22-13. I thought I copied and pasted, but clearly got the wrong column. And the touches were pretty equal, though. Murray had 2 carries and 2 targets. Harris had 1 carry and 2 targets. So it is basically James Cook, and then the workload will kind of be equal between Harris and Murray. But right now, unless things change, Damian Harris is not going to be a player you're going to be able to trust until we see some otherwise. The tight ends, they both got 4 targets. Dalton Kincaid and Dawson Knox, they both played over 80% of the snaps, which means they were in 2 tight end personnel over 80% of the time. We expected that. They gave us that. But again, it was a tough matchup. So we'll see where things go from there. All right. So that was it. Now the Jets go on to a short week at Dallas. This is going to be problematic, I should say. So when we look at this game, now I don't know if Dallas, again, is going to, like we talk about the mental aspect, if they're going to see Zach Wilson, if they're going to have a mental letdown and they're going to come in like off their A game. If Dallas comes in with their A game, the Jets are in trouble here. Now, Breece Hall can still move the ball on the ground a bit. That'll be fine. But the passing game, man, the Dallas secondary is loaded, and their pass rush is devastating. And Zach Wilson is already frenetic as it is. And Micah Parsons and company. And DeMarcus Lawrence, there's others. Dante Fowler. There's more. The names kind of evade me for a second here. I'm just kind of in scramble mode right now, early week. But this could be a real problem for the Jets. And what would have been a game that would have been Aaron Rodgers at quarterback and close. Now Dallas, this one that they better win this game for their sake, because if they don't, that's a win that they're going to need to have. And here we got another comment. Chad TV. Yep. Damian Harris, yep, in his Latavius Murray is an upgrade, right? Believe that or not, the dude's old, and Uncle Ted loves the corners over in Dallas, and yeah, they're very good. Trevon Diggs, playmaker. Stephon Gilmore, certainly he's in a perfect scheme. You don't want to play in man anymore all the time, but he plays that zone and he is so good at it. Yeah, absolutely. And even, Deron Bland missed that last game. And then I think Donovan Wilson, their safety, was out against the Giants. And those are two players that are part of their packages. But they also have Jordan Lewis, their slot corner. Slot corner is very, very good. All right. The risers for this week. We'll do risers till about 20 after the hour. Then we'll do some fallers till about bottom of the hour. Brandon Kravitz come in with waivers at that point. If you're enjoying the show, please consider hitting the like and subscribe button. As I said earlier, I will be putting threads up on Twitter. Usually those come a lot later in the week. I'll try to get something up today with player trends, but if you give me a follow at Jim Coventry NFL, that would be greatly appreciated, and I appreciate you being here with me. All right, some risers. Deshaun Watson passed the test. We talked about this a little bit yesterday, but overall, in a very heavy rain in the first half, eased off for a little bit in the second half. He got better. He got better as the game went on. And the fact he ran for 45 yards and a touchdown, some design runs in there. Was he the Deshaun Watson from Houston? No. But he passed the test because he wasn't the Deshaun Watson from last year. And he missed some throws. But like I said, there was bad weather involved. The grip was not good. Burrow had the same issues. So I think that said, right now, if you drafted Deshaun Watson as the 8th or the 9th quarterback off the floor for today, you're saying, okay, that's going to be a reasonable choice. That probably ends up working out. So far, so good. Anthony Richardson, net win. We got to say it's a net win. He did get banged up on a play at the end of the game, but the coach said he could have come back in if needed. But, the fact that he threw for 223 yards and a touchdown, a screen pass to Michael Pittman, beautifully blocked. I mean, there was nothing great about the pass from Richardson, but the blocking, there were like 3 blockers that took care of business for Michael Pittman down the field. So, but it's a touchdown pass. It counts for Anthony Richardson. 24-37. You know what? We can live with that too. We were worried we're going to see sub 50% passing. So a lot of safe passes, but that's good. So, and he runs for 40 yards and a touchdown. So overall, for where you drafted Anthony Richardson, we said he was a floor play. I talked about this. I didn't say he's a ceiling play. Floor. And you know what? When you're talking about the game he had, that's exactly what I point out. That's a floor game, but you could take that if that's where you drafted him, right? All right, let's see what we got we'll have to always mention Tua here. Look, the offense, Mike McDaniel, I talked about this a little bit yesterday. I was listening to the Ringer podcast today. I think it was Ben Solak on there, maybe Stephen Ruiz. And he pointed out, I talked a little bit about the motion that was different than last year. He crystallized it better. So what happened was last year, Tyreek Hill would run his motion across the field, get ahead of Steve, and then turn upfield. Well, defenses had time, knowing he was doing that, to adjust safeties and things. It still worked. Hill still was fine. What they did in this game, they would line him up in the slot, like near the tight end. They would motion him to the same side of the field. So instead of that motion all the way across the field, when you're lined up here and you're motioning this way, the defense doesn't have time for an answer for that. And it was brilliant because it gets Hill that head of steam. He gets an automatic free release with his speed. It was sick. So Mike McDaniel, hats off to you. It was beautiful. So if they continue that, Tua is just going to be in a great spot because literally you've got Tyreek Hill. Now he's not getting 200 yards every week, but that said, that's going to be tough to defend. Everybody else kind of chipped in, but again, it's all about Tua and Tyreek Hill. So it's going to be a thing to watch. And let's go to another one. Nick, James Conner. You know what? In the PPR, James Conner had 12 points, and in the game, and that's going to be a floor game for him. He's going to get the touches. Keontae Ingram, I think, had 5 touches, and he lost 4 yards on those. Conner has no competition. Conner gets targets. Washington was a tough draw on the road. That was a tough draw, and he got 12 PPR points. He's going to be fine. Paris Johnson looked good at tackle. The line maybe not be as garbage as it was last year. It's going to be terrible, but it's not going to be as bad maybe. He's getting to work. Love James Conner. All right, let's see. And yep, Chad's talking about get sucked into Tua. I know, because last year he had the game against the Ravens. Then it was weird. Teams adjusted to McDaniel. The injuries hit. There was a whole lot of just craziness in there. So yeah, it's hard to know, but we've seen Tua have games. You're right, but I'm still excited. All right, let's move to see. I want to get through more players. Get through some running backs. Travis Etienne. Here's what I liked. 80% snap share. Based on what we saw last year, he'd get a couple games where he'd get a lot of work, and then they would back way off. They had Dearness Johnson free agency, Tank Bigsby in the draft, and we're thinking, okay, well, he's not getting work. 18 carries, and he gets 5 targets and 5 catches. He didn't have more than 3 catches in the game all last year. And I said, if Doug Peterson begins to use him in the passing game, all of a sudden Travis Etienne's a star for fantasy. And that beat his most catches of last year. That's an encouraging sign. Tyler Algier, what else do we say? 56% of the snaps, 63 for Bijan. Tyler Algier had more touches, 5 yards a carry, just like last year, couple touchdowns. Bijan's a superstar. Bijan's getting his, but Arthur Smith is going to run the ball, and it's going to be a ton. And I don't know that Algier gets 15 carries every week, but I was saying before the season, he gets around 10 probably. Said he'd be a flex play for sure. So I think that continues. And obviously, and I think Brandon Kravitz at the bottom line, we're talking about Kenny Gainwell, but he played 62% of the snaps, 14 carries, 4 targets. Rashad Penny, healthy scratch. So it's definitely a thing there. Let's see. CD Smitty, do I drop Mostert or Tank Bigsby for Tyler Algier? Tyler Algier should be a sustainable player. He's not going to put up 2 touchdowns every week, but he should get you 10 or so carries, and he's going to get 5 yards a pop. He did last year. His line is great. The blocking schemes are great. Tyler Algier is a good if you need a running back. And Chad, so Cordero was inactive, but Coach, now see, here's the problem. Coach Smith talked about using him as a receiver. Well, you're not using Drake London, and you're not using Kyle Pitts. So that's probably a problem there. And Uncle Ted just loves him some Roschon Johnson. That's awesome. He had a great game for you, too. That was very nice to see that. All right, Kenneth Walker. And Kenneth Walker, look, I worried that he couldn't sustain first downs, and he didn't. But he puts the yards up, 12 for 64. But he had 63% of the work. So he was the guy, and there was no question he was the guy. And Jack Charbonnet was an afterthought. But again, be careful, because I still think Pete Carroll's going to realize if Charbonnet can move the chains, Walker getting 0, 1, 2, 15, and that doesn't move the chains. That's the problem. And so right now he looks great. And Uncle Ted, yeah, Shaheed played 54% of the snaps. The problem is going to be, I love Shaheed. Loved him last year, was all over him early. But the thing is, if they get leads in games and he's the third receiver, but when he's on the field, Rashid Shaheed is a player you want to have, because not only can he win downfield, which he did, but he also showed last year in weeks 14 to 17, he can win underneath too. All right. Josh Kelley. So he was starting to do a little bit of good stuff last year, but he hurt his knee, and then he was done, and he came back and just wasn't, getting it done. Well, it looks like with the new offensive coordinator, Kellen Moore, they have some dedication to the run game. Defense are going to give them a lot underneath, and so we're going to see that. So Kelley gets 16 for 91 and a touchdown, and Austin Eckler got it done on the ground. Kelley played 48% of the snaps. Eckler's been saying for a couple of years, I want less work. I want to extend my career out. And so if Kelley can continue this level of play, the line is good. The guys who weren't good before, they got experience, and Zion Johnson's another year into the league. And we have Rashawn Slater at left tackle healthy. So it's going to be a good scenario, because especially when they do get vertical, there's going to be room to run. So Josh Kelley is a flex play, a good waiver ad. And I'm sure Brandon Kravitz will talk about him at the end of the hour, tell you more than I did. Now, obviously, J.K. Dobbins is done for the season. Melvin Gordon's on the practice squad. He probably gets called up. Now, I don't think he jumps ahead of people. I think now remember, Justice Hill had a situation like this last year where he had an opportunity. He stepped into a game. It was like triage mode, and he came in and he did well. But then after that, when he had like nobody else on the depth chart, Harbaugh wouldn't play him. And then Harbaugh went on. First, he said, Justice Hill is looking great. And then we were excited. And then he came back a couple weeks and says, well, I can't use him in a heavy workload. Well, Justice Hill gets 2 touchdowns, but he had 8 carries for 9 yards. Gus Edwards had 8 carries for 32 yards. Justice Hill is, is more of a receiving back. So Gus Edwards is probably the guy here. And he deeper leagues, he's probably drafted. I know I drafted him in any league that went more than 17 rounds. But definitely you'll want to consider adding Gus Edwards. He was 5 yards a carry last year. And of course, Kyron Williams. I don't know what it'll be week to week, but obviously he outplayed Akers. And so we'll see what that goes. But for right now, he's definitely somebody, on stock up. Some receivers, Michael Pittman. I was very nervous about Michael Pittman because I just didn't know if Richardson can get him the ball. And Richardson throws like a lot of stuff at the same speed. And so it's very tough. But the screen pass that was perfectly blocked, like I said earlier, for 39 yards. He gets 11 targets, catches 8 of them for 97 yards. So right now, Michael Pittman, through 1 week, stuff can change quickly, but through week 1, I was wrong on him for now. And hopefully I am wrong because I love Michael Pittman. But right now I was wrong, and gladly. But he looks like he's on track to be obviously the clear alpha. And if they keep getting him the ball, yeah, he'll be just fine. Who else we want to point out here? Zay Jones. Zay Jones was second in targets. Now, the beauty for Zay Jones is we know what he is. He's not a high impact player, but last year when they needed him, and Trevor Lawrence is a great thrower of the football to the perimeter, they got him. But now with Calvin Ridley, there's really no attention on Zay Jones. And they didn't flow to the middle of the field. Christian Kirk was very lightly targeted. Evan Ingram, I think I got 5, but Zay Jones gets 7 and an incredible touchdown catch. So as the second outside receiver for Trevor Lawrence, there's going to be some action there. Now, I'm not saying Zay Jones is going off every week, and I think you at best are thinking him as a flex play because, again, there are 4 players in the offense that are way, way better than him at football, but he's going to get his weeks where he's getting his targets. So, look, there's that. Nico Collins and Robert Woods stock up for sure. And, we were worried about C.J. Stroud, but what I was saying in the preseason was this. C.J. Stroud is more the guy that could throw the ball to the perimeter. He was not that guy that's going to look like the rookie quarterback that's scared, dump to the middle. That wasn't his profile. Nico Collins gets 11 targets, 80 yards, one of the best games as a pro for him. And then Robert Woods, only 57 yards out of 6 catches, but 10 targets. So it looks like the Texans are going to trail often, right? And so it looks like we are going to see those two involved. And we like Nico Collins. We were drafting him around pick 120 or so, sometimes a little bit earlier. Robert Woods, we really were out on. And I can't say sustained for Robert Woods, but if you're in a deep league and you need receptions, I think he's going to pile some of those up for you. He's reliable. And Charlene loves some Trey Palmer here. Yep. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Baker. Yeah, I know. Exactly. I mean, if they trail and they got to go with 3 receiver sets, he's going to see his opportunity. And with the coverage going to Godwin and Evans, yeah, for sure. And then Chad's talking about Pittman, whether he's still going to be a trade. Oh, that'd be great if Pittman got traded out of there. That would be a beautiful thing. We'll see how that looks. All right. And then Uncle Ted likes DJ Moore. Yeah, DJ Moore is going to bounce back this week. That was a bad matchup. And the Packers, actually, they brought it on defense. They typically are poorly coached by Joe Barry. They played to their talent. The Bears were not good, but the Packers played to their talent. And so I got hats off to them, right? All right, Josh Reynolds. Point out Josh Reynolds, that stock up on him. We mentioned in the preseason, while Jameson Williams out, he's going to function as an outside receiver. Jared Goff has a history with him. Jared Goff will throw him the football. So there's that. And then the last stock up I want to go over is Jake Ferguson. He only had 2 for 11, but he had 7 targets, 72% of the snaps. Sloppy game, rainy game. He had a drop or so in there, but he's their guy. And it's very clear he's their guy at tight end. And I tell you, the Dak Prescott tight end always gets targets, and Dak loves Ferguson. He said it himself. So we got that. And then Logan Thomas, 8 targets, 82% of the snaps. So if you're digging deep and you need a second tight end, Logan Thomas still can play. And he's getting up there in age, but he still is an athletic marvel. And he showed us that he can put up a 4 for 43 for us in a game that they didn't have to throw a ton. All right, fallers. All right, the matchup was terrible. I'm going to give him that. But I am nervous about Kenny Pickett. Very frenetic. And now not every team's going to get the pressure that the 49ers got. So we get that, right? We totally understand it. So, but still, it wasn't a good sign because he plays in a tough division. The Bengals are well coached, don't have the high-end defensive talent besides Hendrickson and maybe a Wouzier, but that's going to be a tough matchup twice a year. And, of course, the Ravens, more injuries, but they scheme it up well. They're going to create types of pressure. And then the Browns played out of their mind and they look really good, well coached by Jim Schwartz. So Pickett's going to have a lot of games where he's going to get pressured. And now Deontay Johnson, according to Adam Schefter, has missed multiple weeks with hamstring injury. That's not going to help. So Kenny Pickett is somebody that we're very concerned about right now. That great preseason. Remember, we just had preseason grain of salt. Lamar Jackson, little sock down on him. Charlene, thank you. You're breaking the news for us that Rodgers is now gone for the season. Yeah, that's a tough blow. Feel terrible for him. Fortunately, he's had a Hall of Fame career, and hopefully, in terms of his humanity, he'll heal fine from that. Football, I don't know if he'll come back or not. Hopefully, he does, but he'll be 40 next year. So thanks, Charlene, for telling us that sad news. And Sauger, same thing. Yeah, feel sorry for him. I mean, I'm sure he was excited about this year as the Jets fans were. So, yeah, nobody's happy about an injury. Nobody's happy about this. And, yeah, even if you hate the Jets, doesn't matter. You want people out there playing, right? So recover well, Aaron Rodgers. Lamar Jackson, a little bit of stock down. Not his fault, but a lot of screens to Zay Flowers. That's what we saw. Mark Andrews will be back. Now, two potentially lengthy injuries in the offensive line. Ronnie Stanley got hurt. We don't know. Tyler Linderbaum, the center, got hurt. So, but if this offense is going to be a work in progress, but if they're going to be missing pieces, that could be problematic. Chad, you're asking about the return of A-Rob. They were making him a thing in the slot. Kenny Pickett being frenetic. The slot's going to be his friend. And Allen Robinson, it was weird last year because he was declining. And then the Rams had a plan for him in the slot, but they didn't put him there. They lined him up outside, but there was no protection for Stafford. And they never had a chance. So, I mean, Robinson could be washed, but I think he had a raw deal. I still think he's got enough left in the tank to be able to be like in the slot because he's a big dude. Good catch radius, still athleticism to get the ball. I think he could be a PPR guy in the slot. I don't think we see the explosive Allen Robinson anymore. I don't think that's going to be there, but that's something to consider here. You know what? He had a good game from a stat standpoint. Stock down on Sam Howell. Sam Howell was able to get a win, just 200 yards passing. He had a touchdown. He ran one in, but he looks outmatched. And this is a bad defense. So he was able to get away with it because the Cardinals have like nobody. But when he starts to run, he thinks he's more athletic than he is. I mean, he got rocked because he thought he could get to the edge, and he can't get to the edge. Two defenders were there before him, not just one, two. And I just think with the receivers he has, look, I get it. He had stock up before the fall when he was drafted in the fifth round quarterbacks. There's not much of a track record for this. And that game against the Cardinals, red flags. Hold on to him on your roster. See what he does next week, because maybe it was the first game of the season, but I'm very nervous about that. Stock down on, you know what? Before the injury, Aaron Jones. Oh, yeah, sorry, Charlene. Yes. Loving Calvin Austin. Yeah, he's got that speed, element. Pickens is going to draw the tough coverage. Calvin Austin, definitely pick him up. He's the third receiver. And I want to say he played almost half the snaps. Most of that was with Deontay Johnson came up. But yeah, he's going to get in that lineup, right? Charlene's going to get her Calvin Austin going. Love it. A.J. Dillon had already been playing about half the snaps. I didn't see that coming because in the end of last year when Jones was hurt, that was the case. But Jones was the clear number one. Before the injury, it was still getting close to even. Now, A.J. Dillon was 13 carries for 19 yards. Every year, his production has gone down, and this did not help that at all. So we'll see about that. Aaron Jones, we'll see about his hamstring. He looked super explosive. I don't know how the team says, you know what, Dillon, we're going to keep you in a time split when you are here and here in terms of talent. We'll see what happens with that. And then Rashad Penny, stock way down because they deactivated him. Don't know what the deal with him is. There were words that they were going to maybe cut him in the preseason. They didn't. But an inactive following that up, that's not a vote of confidence. Yep, Ken Burns is picking up Austin as well, for sure. Deion Jackson, big stock down, 13 carries, 14 yards. He put the ball on the carpet twice, and Zach Moss should be back this week. So to me, Zach Moss is that early down running back. That's going to be it. And Deion Jackson will chip in on some passing. Now, it's Evan Hull, maybe missed multiple weeks. They're hoping Taylor back in a bit. All right, it's exciting time. We're going to have Brandon Kravitz coming in here. Brandon, just finishing up a couple stock downs. We're going to get you rolling. Brandon, tell everybody where they can find your work and say hello to everyone.
Well, hey, guys, how you doing? I hope that you all found your way to 100 fantasy points. I know it was tough sledding out there for many of us this week. I'm at Brandon Kravitz on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, update those social outlets regularly. You can catch me daily on the Fantasy Bites podcast, all part of the RotoWire network. That's Monday through Friday, at least 3 to 5 minutes on just really quick bullet points of everything that you need to know. So, of course, today's episode largely about what we saw last night with Aaron Rodgers and some of the injury updates that will impact the waiver wire that we'll talk about here.
Yes, Brandon, glad to have you every Tuesday. Brandon will be here with us. Brandon doing a couple real quick final points on the stock down players. And Uncle Ted's right. Garrett Wilson right now is a big stock down. We were predicating his season on Aaron Rodgers. Now it's Zach Wilson. They might bring in a veteran. But that said, the upside potential with Aaron Rodgers was stratospheric, and now that's gone. Anything on Garrett Wilson, Brandon?
Yeah, I mean, I was so excited to see what he could bring to the table. And I think even with Zach Wilson in there, we see just the talent level that he has, saving Zach on that touchdown late in the game, batting it to himself. You should get extra points for that in fantasy, how beautiful that was. Let's wait and see what they're able to do at quarterback. They're not going to find anything that's nearly as enticing as Aaron Rodgers, but they still might be able to salvage this thing. Let's not forget Garrett Wilson was still highly fantasy viable with Mike White at quarterback last year. Zach Wilson's clearly not the answer. They showed you that at the end of the game. They weren't even trying to get in the end zone late. They don't trust Zach Wilson one bit. They're going to do something at quarterback, and hopefully it's something that can save Garrett Wilson's season. I think you can just remove everybody else from your mind, though. There might have been another sleeper in there, part of that pass game with Aaron Rodgers in the mix. It's Garrett Wilson and Garrett Wilson only now.
Done. Even Andy Dalton would be fine. Rashad Bateman was the next downgrade. He played 39% of the snaps, 3 targets. Zay Flowers getting a ton of short and intermediate, but a lot of screen stuff, but he was the guy. And OBJ, Odell Beckham, he played 92% of the snaps. He had a couple pass interferences each year, so his targets looked lower, but he had more attempts that also show up in the stat sheet. Rashad Bateman was healthy coming into this one. Are we worried about Rashad Bateman, Brandon?
A little bit. I wasn't really all that high on him coming into the year just because they had upgraded all around him. They gave us an indication that they weren't really high on his involvement in the offense. I think that he just opens things up for everybody else. So Mark Andrews is going to be Mark Andrews. Zay Flowers looks like he's already one of the most electric players in the NFL. And I'm excited to see what Odell Beckham can do. I know that he was excited. He and Lamar excited to play with one another. I think he's got big weeks ahead, a good DFS play probably a couple of times throughout the season.
Love that. And the last one, Dalton Schultz. And, you've heard me down talk him all off season. He's a catch and fall guy. But I said CJ Stroud's more of a perimeter thrower. And you got Nico with 11 targets. You got Robert Woods with 10. Well, middle of the field, Dalton Schultz goes 2 for 4 on 4 targets. I don't know that CJ Stroud is going to actively look for the tight end. I don't think Schultz has ever been able to run after the catch, even with Dak. So to me, it's a big stock down. Any last thing on Schultz before we go to the waivers?
Yeah, that offense looks like it's just going to be rough. I've got a lot of Tank Dell shares this year, and I don't want to sell too early, but for a lot of the same reasons. If you line that guy up in the slot, what is that actually worth with the Houston Texans? Let's keep in mind, though, that Baltimore defense is tough. They were on the road, so the tight end position, though, it's rough out there. There's just not a lot of good options.
No, you're right about that. And so Brandon every week's going to give us waiver wires. I see Chad saying OBJ's going to be more involved. Charlene's asking if Joe Namath can still throw. He might beat out Zach Wilson if he gets the chance. Love it. All right. If you need a quarterback this week, Brandon, who are you looking for?
Yeah, let's go to Jordan Love, who's the number 3 quarterback in fantasy this week. Super efficient. The pocket was so clean. I'm not even sure they washed his jersey after the game, Jim. This guy wasn't touched. He's not going to play Chicago every week. But keep in mind, he did all of this without Christian Watson in the offense, and they basically stopped throwing the ball at the end of the game. So I think that he's somebody that could be a spot start for you, or somebody that could end up in that top 12 range. I thought he looked really good out there.
I love you saying that because in my 2 quarterback leagues, he was like my target. It was like at my quarterback 16 or so. Now I'm saying, okay, I want to get Jordan Love. The reason I gave was he's one that's not going to get benched for somebody. So even if he was bad, he'd play. But I liked what we saw and what you said from week 1. Very, very encouraging. And so, yeah, Jordan Love, as Brandon tells you, that's your waiver wire ad if he's out there. Of course, 2 quarterback leagues, he's gone. But in 1 quarterback leagues, he's out there in a lot of them. And that's not a bad idea at all. So, you have 3 running backs you're going to outline. Uncle Ted's going to love you here. Tell me about the Chicago running back that you think people should roster on the waiver wire.
So, well, Uncle Ted, you will love this. I'm going to give you them in order, too. So this is how I have it ranked. Roschon Johnson, Kenneth Gainwell, and Joshua Kelley. Roschon looks the part. Things went south offensively for this Chicago team. And once that happened, they leaned on the rookie. We know that talent rises to the top in the NFL. Get this, Jim, 19% snap share before halftime, 55% after. So the job might already be his. We saw him with 6 catches this week. And we know that running quarterbacks don't typically dump the ball off, but I think they want Justin Fields to be a little bit more careful, get the ball out of his hands quicker, and that's going to help Roschon Johnson rack up those catches. So in PPR especially, but he's a big physical back. So he's a guy that they could use at the goal line. He's got 3 down potential. Bijan was the star at Texas, but Roschon was really good too. So I like what I see there. Kenneth Gainwell, I mean, you just can't. Yeah, go ahead.
Real quick before you get there, when you talk about the conservative, DJ Moore doesn't like to hear that, but you might be right. I love it. Go on to Kenneth Gainwell.
Yeah, DJ Moore is going to have to. We saw those screenplays that went for touchdowns in the preseason. We're going to need some more of those if DJ Moore is going to be activated. Gainwell, we read the reports throughout the entirety of the offseason. We just chose to ignore it, but he was supposed to be the starting running back even after they got DeAndre Swift, and he was the only guy that was truly involved in this run game, not named Jalen Hurts. Now, I'm not blowing my budget on him if you're in a fab league because I'm not sure how valuable that starting running back spot truly is in Philadelphia, but he's got to be 100% rostered. This guy should not be available anywhere. Starting running back in a high-powered offense that wants to run the football, give me that all day. And by the way, eye test-wise, I thought he looked as good as he's ever looked. The stats don't back that up, but I really liked what I saw. And then Josh Kelley with the Chargers, that one's just injury-based. If Austin Eckler can't play, we saw the commitment to the run game from that Kellen Moore offense. So if he's the starter, slot him right into that RB2 slot. You're going to have to kind of play the predictor game, though, because if Austin Eckler plays, I would just throw Kelley, unless I have Eckler, I would throw Kelley right back onto the waiver wire. But so he kind of has that volatility.
You know, Brandon, I've been saying that Austin Eckler for 3 years now has been asking for more help. He wants somebody to take those early down carries. He wants to extend his career out. And Joshua Kelley was starting to come on last year, and then he had that high ankle sprain, or maybe a knee. I can't remember which one it was, but he missed like a few weeks, and then he came back, and he wasn't quite the same guy. But he was starting to show, and like you said, in the offense right now, yeah, this is an opportunity. And he may be taking a good number of early down carries because, again, Austin Eckler, they got to keep him fresh. This team has aspirations to go deep.
So let me ask you this. Do you think that maybe we can sometimes we do this too much in the fantasy community, just draw complete parallels to what an offensive coordinator did with a different team. But Ezekiel Elliott and Tony Pollard were both fantasy relevant with Kellen Moore. Could this be their version of that with Pollard and Zeke?
It may well be. And if you think about a side point too, the predication of the offense. Now, Vic Fangio's defense, I thought it would take a little while to gel. They were not given much downfield stuff, but other teams aren't going to have that Fangio level of coaching. When they start throwing downfield, the middle of the field is going to open up a lot more because defenses can't compress them. And so as you talk about Kelley being involved, that's going to be some lighter fronts because the Chargers were seeing a lot of notorious heavier boxes despite being a pass team because they knew the passes weren't going to be more than 5.6 yards. And so this is something that could work out really, really well. But you're right. You talk about the 2-back systems that Moore had. And again, you are 100% right. This may well be the case.
Yeah, so maybe I'm wrong about that volatility. You might just want to add Josh Kelley, whether you have Austin Eckler or not, and keep him on your bench there. The wide receivers, I can't wait to talk about. These Rams guys have me all kinds of juiced up. I'm actually trying to talk myself out of going overboard on Puka Nacua, and I'm not actually sure that it's a great idea to do that. You might just want to lean all the way into this. We saw a guy as a rookie in his first game in the NFL get a Cooper Kupp workload, and that's not an exaggeration. Game 1, 39% target share. They lined him up everywhere. He has the exact same size, athletic profile, and then just for a fun little footnote, they're both from the upper Northwest, Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua. These are basically the same guys. I went back and looked at their draft profiles. Puka actually ran a faster 40 time. They were both slow in the range of wide receivers, yes. But Puka was in that 4.5 range. Cooper Kupp is a 4.6 40 guy. So Puka actually has slightly more just raw athleticism, I guess, than Cooper Kupp does. Not saying he's Kupp, but if he was clearly given Kupp's workload, and then I went back and watched the highlights. They line this guy up everywhere, inside, outside, traditional X. He was the guy. Now you got to worry about when Kupp comes back, but until then, I think you could put this guy right into your lineup, matchup proof with how much work he's getting. And then Tutu Atwell is a nice little consolation prize because he was used as the gadgety speed guy. He actually saw deeper targets down the field, and I don't really believe in this run game whatsoever. Tutu Atwell helps supplement that. So I like both of them. Puka Nacua a couple of slots higher.
Chad TV tells us, remember he was on Puka earlier in the preseason, and I called Atwell having a game here because I thought Van Jefferson would be locked up a lot on Tariq Woolen, and I thought that Atwell would be the one that got going. This is a question that I don't know either of us have the answer to. It looks like Seattle sleptwalked through that game. It looks like they were playing a team they thought they were going to win against. Teams will now see that Puka Nacua had a 100-yard game. They might choose to put attention on him. What's going to happen if an NFL team goes in and says, you know what, we want to stop this guy?
Well, that's why I think it's so important to look at the way the Rams used him, because if they just lined him up in the same spot and just took the same play over and over again that the Seahawks were giving them, then that's where I think that the stat line would be fool's gold, even the targets. And we all know that when you're looking at the waiver wire, you want to chase targets even more than production when it comes to the wide receiver position.
Right.
But the fact that they used him in a variety of different ways, and he's got the kind of speed. When he was in college, they used him as part of the reverse game too, so he could get rushes in there. They can try and take him away, but I think the Sean McVay was completely in his bag in this game, and he'll find a way to get this guy open.
It was crazy. And McVay, you're right. McVay is one of those coaches. There are probably 5 or 6 in the league that are so good at scheming people open. Yeah. And so, when you think you have it, you may not so much. So
he wants a smart player. Puka is clearly a smart player. I didn't need you to tell me not to blow my fab on Puka Nacua because I'm about to do it.
Nice. And then Tutu Atwell, don't sleep on him either because he will be involved because it's going to have to be a little more gadgety of an offense right now. And again, Atwell should be sticky all year, I think, even when Cooper Kupp comes back, because Atwell, they need a speed element in that offense. And that's one thing that he brings to the table. So both are very good waiver plays. How about tight end?
Yeah, let's look at Hayden Hurst. I mean, the position was dreadful, so we need signs of life where we can find them. We often say this about a tight end. He's a young quarterback's best friend, the safety blanket, so to speak. That's exactly what Hurst was. He had 7 targets. That was 4th among all tight ends this week. So if you were in the Roschon Johnson, Darren Waller, David Njoku game going into the NFL season, I think you could definitely look the way of Hayden Hurst and throw him right into your starting lineup. So that's a guy that I'm excited to pick up and get going. For me, if I were to rank the 3, assuming that everything is equal, I would have Puka Nacua 1, Roschon Johnson 2, Hayden Hurst 3, because of how dreadful that tight end position is. So just in a vacuum, that's kind of how I have it ranked personally.
And when we talked earlier about C.J. Stroud of the Texans, I said he was the guy that's going to throw the perimeter. Bryce Young, to me, is not the guy that's going to be thrown to the perimeter as much. He's more that guy that's going to be living in the middle of the field a bit more. And, of course, I got the safety's name that picked him off twice. The guy from the Bengals, I can't remember his name. But he picked him off twice because he also knew that Bryce Young could be throwing in the middle of the field. But like you said, Hayden Hurst. Jesse Bates. Thank you. Yeah, Bates was like sitting at it twice. It was so funny. But the advantage goes to Hayden Hurst because, again, when you're looking middle of the field, that's his guy. Beautiful call there. How about defenses?
Yeah, let's keep it simple. Let's go with the Giants. They're taking on the Arizona Cardinals. I know they probably played a little over their heads against Washington, but I still like the Giants coming off of that 40-point loss should be pretty keyed in on this game. So they've got a good pass rush. Let's go with the Giants if you need a streamer. And then season long, I love what I saw from the Cleveland Browns. We know that they have some of the best talent in the NFL on the defensive side of the ball. They showed out against one of the best quarterbacks in the game. So I think if you're going long-term Browns, but just for next week, the New York Giants. Yeah,
and with the Browns, man, Jim Schwartz dialed up a masterpiece. There was a play he moved Myles Garrett, dropped him into the linebacker position. He hadn't done his whole career. They had times where they would put both him and Zarius Smith up, and they would drop him back, and they would send another pressure mode, and it'd be Agbo Okoronkwo or Dalvin Tomlinson. They were just mixing it up, and they were jamming receivers. It was a thing of beauty, and with the talent they have, it's sustainable. It is 100% sustainable. Now, last time I see Chad point out, will this be the end of experts trying to make Van Jefferson a thing? Funny story. We do our roundtable rankings at RotoWire in the preseason. And so it's me, Mario Puig, Jeff Erickson, and Jerry Donabedian. And I was like so far the low man on Van Jefferson. I had to like buried like a 260 on my top 300 list. And my editor comes and goes, you think you could bump him up a little bit? The other guys have him way, way higher. I go, I might be able to get him 10 spots for you, but I can't get him any more than that. He's Van Jefferson. And
that's such a great peek. That's such a great peek behind the curtain. And this is the tough thing that I think analysts like yourself, this is the trouble that you get yourself into, that talent versus opportunity. It just doesn't seem like it's really there as far as what he puts together with the film that he puts out there for Van Jefferson. But when you see Cooper Kupp go down and hit the IR and he's at the top of the depth chart, what are you supposed to do?
Right.
The opportunity is there, but we see with a lot of the guys that we talked about here, the more talented players, the players that fit the scheme better, they're going to be the ones that get opportunities, especially on these rosters where there's a lot of turnover. These are almost treat them like preseason games early on. These guys are fighting for their spot on the depth chart. So what you see out there at ESPN.com, and you're just reading through as far as who's starting where, that is just a template. That is the rough draft of what we will see going into a month into the season. So don't blow your fab budget, by the way. I'm telling myself this and all of you out there. This is only week 1. We've got many more weeks to come, a lot more to sift through week to week with the waiver wire.
And I want to add one more thing before we close out. With the Van Jefferson thing, when it's an outside receiver, they're going to see real coverage. They're going to see one of the top 2 corners on the team. When it's players in the interior, they have an advantage because they're going to see slot corners. They're going to see safety sometimes. The players. So when we're looking waivers like Brandon is, these both players he recommended, obviously had great week 1s, but they both did a lot of their work either in motion or in the middle, little bit outside, but not primarily there. And in today's NFL, there is a big advantage for a talented receiver in the middle of the field. And Brandon pointed that so well in his waivers. Well, every Tuesday, you're going to get Brandon here. Otherwise, the show, remember, we're off. Hey, Charlene, thanks for being here again. We're off Wednesday and Thursday. Don't miss the Sunday live stream. I'll be on Sirius XM Fantasy Sports Radio tonight, Tuesday, tomorrow, Wednesday, and Friday, 8 to 10 p.m. Oh, we got an important one here. Joanna points out, thank you, Joanna, that Dr. Jesse Morse said Austin Eckler might be out next week due to an ankle injury, maybe longer.
Wow.
So what does that do for waivers for Josh Kelley?
I mean, I still think it puts him ahead of Kenneth Gainwell. I'm still more excited about Roschon Johnson because I really think he could be the guy in that Bears offense. We know they're going to lean on the run a lot just to try and keep Justin Fields healthy. So I don't want to go wild with it because I don't think Josh Kelley is the most talented back. You're not getting a direct Austin Eckler replacement, but definitely becomes my second target and somebody that if you are spending a waiver budget, you want to kick that up probably about $10 with that news.
Joanna, thank you for adding that. That helps us close up the show. All right, everybody, thanks for your time. Brandon, thank you. Look forward to working with you every Tuesday. Everybody out there, have a wonderful day, and I will see you back on Friday.